Corporal Jack Sullivan lay perfectly still in the shadowed Norman hedgerow. The cold metal of his improvised grenade was a familiar weight in his gloved hand. He knew the whispers among the men and the disbelief from his officers. There was outright dismissal of his crude, improvised creation. Yet in silent moments before dawn, the cost of failing to understand the enemy's strength. It had already been paid with 89 American lives. The invasion of Normandy had begun just days before, a monumental effort to liberate a continent. On June 6, 1944, Sullivan, a Detroit factory worker, was now an infantryman. He was part of the 29th Infantry Division, landing amidst the chaos of Omaha Beach. As his unit pushed inland through dense hedgerow country, they encountered a formidable new enemy. This intricate German defensive line comprised concrete bunkers, strategically placed. Each bunker housed 4 seasoned German soldiers with machine guns. These weapons created deadly interlocking fields of fire. To advance meant certain death. Standard military tactics, refined over years of training and combat, proved insufficient. Artillery barrages, direct fire from tank destroyers, and infantry assaults proved futile. Regulation grenades and satchel charges met the same unyielding concrete. The bunkers were designed to endure, with walls up to 18 inches thick. Steel-reinforced firing ports and overhead cover shrugged off even heavy shells. Any frontal assault was simply a sacrifice. German defenders cut down American soldiers. They were cut down long before close enough to throw a grenade. Fragmentation from a standard M2 grenade dissipated against reinforced walls. By June 10th, Sullivan's company had lost 34 men at one complex. Survivors were deeply demoralized, requesting unavailable flamethrowers and air support. Sullivan spent that day, June 10th, not in combat but in quiet observation. From 200 yards away, binoculars pressed to his eyes, he studied the bunkers. He watched the subtle movements of the German soldiers, their patterns, their weaknesses. Then he saw them. Small horizontal ventilation slits about 6 inches wide. These were typically located at the rear of each bunker structure. These were crucial for air circulation, preventing defenders from suffocating. It stopped them from suffocating in smoke and fumes of their weapons. Later that evening, examining captured German construction plans, Sullivan confirmed his suspicion. These slits were not obstructed. They led directly into the main fighting compartment. An explosive detonated inside would not be dispersed by open air. It would be contained by concrete, creating immense lethal overpressure. The trick, he realized, was getting an explosive into that small opening. His M2 fragmentation grenades were too large, with a 2.25-inch diameter. The handle and safety mechanism prevented passage through the 6-inch slit. Even if they fit, their 4-second fuse was far too short. The soldier needed at least 10 seconds to approach, insert, and retreat safely. This was where Sullivan's past life before the war came into sharp focus. He had been a quality control inspector at Ford's River Rouge plant. He scrutinized fuel tank welds, understanding tolerances and critical failure points. What mattered was the core function, containing the explosive, reaching the target, and detonating reliably. Everything else he knew was just packaging. He found his solution. He found his solution in the most unlikely of places: the standard U.S. Army ration-tin. Cylindrical, 3 inches in diameter, 4 inches long, it fit the ventilation slit. There was even room to spare for his new device, strong enough to hold an explosive charge until detonation. For the explosive, he salvaged black powder from damaged ammunition. He chose it not for power, but for its forgiving nature. It was easy to handle for an untrained hand. For fragmentation, he used 40 sharp, heavy roofing nails. He packed them around the powder within the tin. The fuse was the final puzzle piece. He needed a 10-second delay. He found this in modified artillery initiators, small devices to ignite propellant. By the evening of June 10th, Sullivan had 3 prototypes. Each prototype weighed about 12 ounces and contained 3 ounces of black powder. It also held 40 nails and was fitted with a 10-second fuse. He tested one in an abandoned German bunker. The explosion was devastating inside. The overpressure alone would have been lethal. The nails embedded themselves everywhere. Anyone inside would have died instantly. His squad leader was impressed. His platoon leader, skeptical but intrigued, considered the device. His company commander dismissed it as a suicide bomb. He threatened court-martial if Sullivan endangered himself with these devices. But Sullivan, his gaze unwavering, argued the brutal truth. Standard grenades weren't working. Men were dying. But his design could clear bunkers without frontal assault. He simply asked for one chance, one bunker. If it failed, he would stop. The commander, facing odds, relented. One chance was given. At 5:42 a.m. on June 12th, Sullivan moved. Carrying 6 homemade grenades, he moved silently toward the bunker. It had defied his company for 3 agonizing days. His squad laid down, covering fire, drawing attention while he moved along the hedgerow unseen. Reaching the rear, he found the ventilation slit and pulled the igniter. He counted to 3, then pushed it through the opening. He heard it drop inside and sprinted back. 7 seconds later, a muffled thud. It was a contained explosion, not a sharp external crack. Instead, it produced a deeper, resonant sound. Silence followed, no return fire. His signal brought the squad forward. The bunker was still. Inside, 4 German soldiers lay dead. The overpressure had ruptured their lungs. Their eardrums were ruptured. Nails penetrated, flesh concrete could not protect. The company commander arrived, surveyed the scene, then quietly asked Sullivan how many more he could build. Within a day, Sullivan had constructed 20 more. His squad learned the technique. His entire squad quickly learned the technique. Approach from the rear, insert, retreat, detonate. On June 13th, they cleared 4 bunkers without a single American casualty, without a single failed detonation. The Germans had no defense against this precise, unexpected threat. Their bunkers, once impregnable, became death traps as word spread. Word of Sullivan's innovation spread rapidly through the division. Other companies requested his grenades, and he taught them the simple process. It involved a ration-tin, salvaged black powder, roofing nails, and a 10-second fuse. By June 16th, 3 companies were employing these improvised weapons. Bunkers that had resisted conventional assaults for days now fell in minutes. The German defensive line, once formidable, began to break under this sustained, unexpected pressure. The Germans attempted to adapt, welding steel plates over the ventilation slits. This desperate measure created new vulnerabilities. Without airflow, bunkers became ovens. It stifled defenders with heat and smoke, diminishing combat effectiveness. Some abandoned concrete strongholds, retreating to new positions. These lacked the ventilation weakness, but also protective strength. By June 20th, Sullivan's improvised grenades had neutralized 47 German bunkers across a 3-mile front. American casualties in these assaults dropped by 80%. Advances expected in weeks were achieved in days. On June 21st, an Army Ordnance evaluation team arrived, studying Sullivan's design. Their conclusion was unequivocal. This improvised grenade was more effective. It surpassed any standard military issue against bunkers. Asked how he, without explosives training, developed the device, Sullivan spoke of his Ford background and quality control. He understood tolerances and critical failure points. The officer understood. Military explosives training focused on existing military explosives. Sullivan focused on the problem. Sullivan's approach had been to focus instead on the problem itself, getting an explosive inside the bunker. Everything else was merely a detail. By July, engineers standardized Sullivan's design. By July, U.S. Army engineers had standardized Sullivan's design, creating manufactured containers, uniform explosive charges, and reliable fuses. designated the bunker penetration grenade improvised pattern. These production models reached frontline units by August. The tools had evolved, but the principle remained Sullivan's. A small explosive precisely fitted exploited a vulnerability detonating inside. Jack Sullivan served through the war, liberating Paris and fighting Siegfried Line. He also endured the brutal Battle of the Bulge. He survived and was awarded the Bronze Star in September 1944. The citation referenced innovative tactical methods. His grenades were still classified. He returned to Detroit in November 1945, resuming his role as a quality control inspector at Ford. He rarely spoke of the grenades. When co-workers asked about his Bronze Star, he simply stated he'd done some demolition work. Not until 1978 did a military historian uncover references to Sullivan's weapons. He found them in after-action reports, and the quiet story resurfaced. The historian tracked down Sullivan, then 60, still at Ford. When asked about the 47 bunkers, Sullivan confirmed the details, yet humbly downplayed his role. He believed any factory worker, given the same problem, could have arrived at a similar solution. The concept was simple, he explained. A ration-tin, explosive, and nails. The Germans had made it easy, he mused, by installing those ventilation slits. Pressed on his thoughts building the first grenade, Sullivan connected past to present. He answered fuel tank welds and explained Ford's failed welds. In Normandy, standard grenades were failing. He applied quality control thinking. He had simply applied quality control thinking. Identify the failure point, then design a solution to address it. Jack Sullivan passed away in 2003 at the age of 85. His obituary noted 38 years at Ford and his military service. It made no mention of improvised grenades or the 47 bunkers. Yet, in U.S. Army combat engineering training, Sullivan's innovation lives on. The principle is taught. Sometimes standard equipment isn't designed for the actual problem. Sometimes improvisation based on understanding an enemy's vulnerabilities is the only path to success. A Detroit quality control inspector recognized a small ventilation slit. Ignored by conventional wisdom, it was key to overcoming defense. Modern bunker assault tactics still adhere to this core concept. Find the vulnerability, exploit it with precision, not overwhelming force. The tools may change, but the principle, forged in a Norman hedgerow by a factory worker, remains. His grenades cost almost nothing. Ration tins, salvaged explosives, roofing nails. They looked crude, and officers called them suicide bombs. But they worked. In just 9 days, they cleared 47 German bunkers. And in just 9 days, they cleared 47 German bunkers that had claimed 89 American lives.